Y'all, we have got to talk about Married to Medicine. We're going to be discussing a teeny bit about episode 7 of season 10. It's called The Grapes of Wrath. But what I found to be much more interesting was Quad's discussion with Carlos King about that episode and her experience this season specifically. So, if I had to rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10, it would be difficult because I mentioned to you guys earlier during our Potomac review that I had taken a melatonin gummy. Okay. Unfortunately, that gummy did me in. Okay. So, as I'm watching, I'm in outer space. Okay. Um, But so I took it too early. Okay, that's the key. I digress about that. What I am saying is, if I had to rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate honestly the first half a 10 and maybe the second half a 6. I almost would have preferred that they, and I was reminded as I was thinking about this, as I was preparing for this recap, I was thinking it reminded me back to that episode of Real Housewives of Potomac, circa season 5, after Candace and Monique's altercation. The ladies had a Ponderosa at Karen's house where they invited Monique, and the entire episode was a conversation about what that altercation meant for the group and where each of the ladies, minus Candace, stood with regards to how they felt about Monique moving forward. And it kind of put a stamp on the idea of a group divided and if that can work in reality TV or not. And how does it feel watching it as an audience? I did enjoy, not, I don't think I enjoyed that episode, but I found it to be riveting television, right? Um, and so as I thought back on that, it kind of made me think or wonder, was that a telltale sign of sort of the beginning of the end for Potomac? Now, granted, is this to think to be dire about the state of Potomac? Not really. But it really is more or less saying that it felt like the death of Potomac as we knew it, right? And now it is has given birth to a new Potomac wherein it is much more common for the ladies of the group to either ice someone out. It became acceptable, right? To ice someone out, to not speak to them, to determine that you are no longer going to interact with this person, thus limiting their time on the screen or what they can do or maneuver within the cast, right? So as I watched this episode or reflected back on the episode in light of the interview that Quad did with Carlos, it harkened me back to that. And it made me wonder if we are entering either a new phase of Married to Medicine wherein it becomes the norm for the group to say, you know what? You don't work for us anymore. Like, you don't work in terms of us working with you anymore. And as a result, we would like for you to go. Okay. So I want you guys to think about that and consider that and what that potentially means for the show and how do you think it affects the show with regards to how things played out in last night's episode. Now, for those of you guys that didn't see the episode, the reason why I would rate the first half a 10 was because it was so riveting. The second half was a 6 to me because also once we had gotten to the Quad stuff and they had chosen to move on, my preference would have been to get an unedited version of that conversation with Quad because I felt like it was important. And I think maybe it would have shed more light onto certain things, but then maybe not. I don't know. And then the rest of the episode to me could have come at a later date after the holidays, okay? Because we would have been picking up with fresh new energy. However, what we're going to focus more of our discussion on is the Quad aspect of it, like I said in the beginning. The beginning of the episode resumes with, Dr. Heavenly laying the smackdown on Quad, talking about how Quad was, trash talking Phaedra. We finally get this space where Dr. Simone lays it out for Quad that, we're sick of you not, just coming around when there's an event, basically coming around when it's time to film and not really talking to us outside of filming. We're going to address that in when we talk about, Quad's conversation with Carlos as much as we possibly can without going too over. Like I can't hit every point, but I can give you the highlights and things that I came away with that I found quite interesting. So the other thing is, it's very funny to me that we get this idea. It felt like, I don't know if you guys felt like this, whether you're a fan of Quad or not. I'm not really here to get into that with you guys, because I know that you're going to be a fan of somebody, you're not going to be a fan with somebody. So that's just, I mean, it is what it is, and that's your right, right? But it felt like Dr. Simone had volunteered to be the de facto leader in this. And it makes me wonder, based on something that Quad will later tell us, if Dr. Simone was acting on behalf of Toya, okay, so that Toya would not look like the bad guy in this situation, because Quad told Carlos King that when she did have a conversation with Dr. Simone about whatever she did to her, she wanted to apologize for it. And she says that, let me put the alleged badge up here, but she alleges that Dr. Simone told her, and this was, I guess, maybe before last year's reunion, Dr. Simone told her, I go against you because I don't want Toya to be mad at me. So now, in retrospect, when I go back to the episode last night and I hear, it felt to me like Dr. Simone was leading the charge. She had taken up the general role. I felt like, Toya was kind of there to give some points. I felt like Dr. Heavenly was there to act as like a sergeant at arms, and everybody had just kind of sort of like said, you know what, this is what we got to do. And Quad, it didn't feel like she was getting it. Like, I'm guessing that they wanted Quad to apologize for specific things. It felt to me like Quad didn't feel like she needed to apologize because specific things had also been done to her. We've talked ad nauseum about some of the things that Dr. Heavenly has told us about how some of the ladies feel about how Quad moves off season. But I also predicted for you guys that it would not look very well when they did it. Okay. There are certain things that may be true about Quad. I'm quite sure. But I also knew when I watched the show how it would also appear. Also, I watched Funky Dineva's take on the situation because I know that he knows Quad, and to hear him talk about maybe why Quad feels the way that she does, it's quite understandable given that she came onto this show, and which she does touch on just a bit, about how she was positioned as this underdog, this person that needed help, learning how to be a doctor's wife, and how she was some charity case, that people needed to come off their chariots, okay, and help, to becoming what Carlos calls the breakout star, and what that meant for her becoming a target, and how that impacted her relationship with Mariah, and then also recognizing that maybe there is something to her feelings about the rest of the ladies, but maybe there's something to how the rest of the ladies are responding to her. However, what we now know from Quad, basically saying Dr. Simone really don't have no issue with her. She just don't want Toya to be mad. That's giving weird. Because Dr. Simone being a doctor, like, why would you be needing to acquiesce to what Toya is saying? Like, Toya, who has complained that the show has never really given her her due respect with regards to her businesses or what she's been doing in the background, that's an interesting observation to me. But I think it says something about the dynamics behind the scenes on the show. Is that an alliance of convenience because Dr. Jackie is so very close with Dr. Heavenly now? I don't know. I don't know. But it is very interesting indeed. Um, then the ladies, nothing is resolved at dinner, and then the ladies call Quad back to the room, back to I guess Toya's room or suite or whatever, and they essentially set her down, Phaedra included, to let her know that thank you for your services. Okay. We would like for you to go home. We don't have anything to offer you. Okay. Not in the way of friendship. And the other thing I noticed was that, Toya said, I have a big day tomorrow, and I only want people who are there that are going to be for me. I took that to mean, Quad, I don't want you here. And so when then Simone tells her basically, go home, girl, I was like, dang. I mean, it just felt so cold. And again, whether you like Quad or not, whether Quad has been an a-hole or not, I'm just here to tell you that the optics felt like, well, we knew we had to get rid of her. So let's bring her out here to San Francisco to tell her so she can have to leave and pack up early and go home. That's what it felt like. Okay, just by watching the show. I'm sure there's more that's involved, which is why I would have loved to have the entire episode be those conversations, especially since that would have ultimately looked like her last scene. But then we know she's coming back in the finale. How's that going to play out? I don't know. Because that would have been the finale is the only moment that she comes into contact with Dr. G. Doesn't look unpleasant. But based on what we know from this interview with Quad and Carlos King, there was plenty of unpleasantness in the marriage, allegedly. Okay. So let's get to that interview. The rest of the episode was really the ladies going to the tastings and stuff like that with Toya. I mean, the best part about it to me was Phaedra and that Fendi fur that she was wearing. I mean, it was given opulence, and then the setting of them sitting outside in at the vineyard enjoying their wine. I just felt like this is Fabulosity, and finally we're getting back to that. And I do wish the shows in general would lean more into the Fabulosity. Again, we don't want to see the neighbors down the street. We don't want to see people who are at that level. We want to see people doing fantastic and fabulous things. And if that is Phaedra's purpose for being there, then give us more of it. If that is, I feel like they're leaning into Toya's aesthetic here also too, with the level of Fabulosity. I like it. Give me more. If it's going to take Toya going to every winery across the country and across the European nations, do that, okay? Because these shows deserve. Oh, and the other big moment was, obviously Dr. Jackie talking up to Vice President Kamala Harris. Amazing, huge for the show, huge for the show. Great look, totally amazing. So I can't discount those other aspects either. So as a whole, it was a good episode. Did I like everything that happened? No, but it was good. It was good. So let's talk about some things that came up during the Carlos King interview with Quad. She basically refutes Dr. Heavenly's claim that she was ever any type of roommate in any situation with Mariah. She said that she dated Mariah's cousin and she clicked with Mariah. She misses the fun that they had. When asked if she could see what Mariah went through during the end of her time with Married to Medicine, she says she does see it. I guess she sees maybe something similar. the question comes up about knowing your worth, and she felt like, one of the things that I thought was interesting that she said about Mariah, and I think this is what I've always meant by, I think that there were bigger issues that the cast had with Mariah, and I don't know that Mariah did herself any favors, but it's difficult because she says that she remembers Mariah one time saying to the group, "Y'all not married to medicine, y'all married to Mariah." And I'm not gonna lie, there were times I think in those earlier seasons where it did kind of come across like Mariah wanted to be acknowledged as the queen bee. However, with Carlos stating that that Quad was the breakout star of the show, Quad is like, please don't do that because it puts a target on my back. And Carlos relates that to a bit of PTSD that she may have had with the falling out with her and Mariah, because Quad says that, she thought that they would walk through doors together, her and Mariah. But things shifted after the breakout star comments. And she thinks that Mariah felt like the show was her baby and she deserved to be in that breakout star position. And now Quad feels like with that title, she's being treated differently and she's under heavy scrutiny, and she feels like the title was weaponized against her. She says she never thought she was better than anyone, and she came in as the underdog of the show. And she even says that her father questioned Mariah's friendship during season 1. He said, "You need to go back and watch the season. Something stuck out to her when she did that they played her like she was a low charity case." And I guess it was a statement that Mariah made that, "Oh, she don't know how to be a doctor's wife. We need to mold her," as if she had no couth or wasn't well spoken. And Quad says as a result of all of this, she's taken Star of Married to Medicine off of her Instagram. Did Sister Circle change her relationship with the cast? Well, she says that, she brings up Jackie, bringing that up specifically, and she doesn't understand why she felt that way. But she did feel like the ladies from Sister Circle showed her more compassion during the dissolution of her marriage than the ladies of Married to Medicine did, simply because of the nature of their shows. Sister Circle was literally about a sister circle. Married to Medicine is sort of conflict resolution. So being put into conflict with these ladies probably has a different effect than being in a sister circle, if you understand what that means, right? So some of the Married to Medicine girls knew what she was going through, but she was afraid that if she verbally said things up to them about her marriage, that it would hurt Dr. G's career. And she didn't feel like they were a safe space for her. This stuff about Dr. G's career and things that happened in their marriage, it keeps coming up over the past several weeks. So we're going to dive more into that in just one second, even though I don't really want to, because I think it's that's where it gets dark for me, but it's the reality that seems to be permeating underneath the surface of a lot of things that are happening. So we got to talk about it. Because she does recall during a reunion with Andy Cohen, with her and Dr. G during their sit down, she recalls it maybe being Toya, Mariah, and Dr. Simone, maybe. But she remembers Andy asking the ladies about what he said about hitting Quad. My only assumption is that there was some point where maybe Dr. G alleged or Dr. G said that. I could not be for certain. I don't. That's what I took from it. Did you guys take that from it? Let me know in the comment section down below. I have to say alleged because I rewound this back 4 times and I still couldn't get a good grasp. So I have to say alleged because I didn't get I couldn't fully understand it. But apparently, when Andy asked that, she remembers hearing voices say, "He didn't say he hit her. He's a doctor. You can't say that about him." And Andy had to get into a banter with them and reinforce that he did say that in front of him. So at that point, Quad realized that they hated her so much that they couldn't even believe what their own ears had heard, their own ears had heard. and not believe what was being said until Andy put his stamp on approval on it. They didn't want to believe it otherwise. Okay. Which I thought was very interesting. And so again, there's this very there's this really interesting, it's not interesting, it's sad idea that there was some very dark things happening in Dr. G and Qua's marriage. And so it begs the question about everybody. I guess if they don't believe it, then it doesn't really bother them to be around him or want to bring him back, despite the fact that she's still there. But in my mind, I would think to myself, again, I say alleged. I don't know, because I just want to be clear. But if I felt like someone did that to someone I know or worked with, even if I did not like them, I don't know that I would be as excited about bringing them back around. Like, I would be giving that person the side eye. So it says a lot to me, or it makes it feel like to me that either the cast does not believe it or they don't care. It's not even a topic I want to talk about, but because it keeps coming up, what is the truth of this? That's what I need to know. And why does everyone feel so cavalier about it? If this is the case, do they just not believe it? Because if they don't believe it, then that would be the reason why. All right. Meanwhile, she also goes back to the clip that they keep showing about the sister circle, with her acknowledging sister circle at that all white party. Quad says that she also took the time to acknowledge her friends from Married to Medicine. I don't know if that was shown in the episode or not, but that Toya and Simone didn't even stick around to hear it because she acknowledged her friends from Sister Circle first. So that was an eye opener as well. Let me get to some other highlights. Is it true that she doesn't keep in contact with the girls when they're not filming? She says that is not true. When they're not filming, she's in contact with those that want to be in contact with her. She's not nailing them to the cross, even though they're not calling her. But she says she has kept in contact with Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Jackie. And when she left New York from the last reunion, she didn't have bad blood with anybody but Toya. And she feels like she's being held to a standard that they don't have to meet. I would say that that's interesting. The phone does work both ways. We have talked on this channel about Melody, who also takes breaks when she's done with filming, but also too, a part of me suspects that that is more in line with the fact that her ex is on the show and that there are so many people who are cool with her ex. But now there's even more similarities because Quad is on the show where everybody is really, really cool with her ex, despite some of the things that some of them seem to either know or don't want to believe that she went through with him. When you peel the layers back, it's very interesting. That's when we get into her talking about she had a conversation with Dr. Simone off camera. They went to dinner. They had a good time. That's where she asked her specifically, "What have I done to you?" And Dr. Simone allegedly said, "I go against you because I don't want Toya to be mad at me." I feel like I've heard that before. Have we heard that before? Somebody let me know in the chat. Carlos confirms that this is the alliance that he tells people about, and Quad says she didn't like it, but she could understand where she was coming from. Talking about, of course, she confirms again that she never got a courtesy call from the network or production or anybody with regards to bringing on Dr. G and Sweet Tea. She felt like she could read the tea leaves with everybody posting them on their social media, like it was such a frenzy to post about Dr. G and Sweet Tea whereas we had never seen that before, or not really, not like that. She felt very disrespected. She learned about it on social media just like everybody else. But again, she was putting two and two together. And she says, why couldn't the producers take off their hat and display some humanity? Okay. She does talk about missing 5 weeks of filming. And, she talks about using an agent and a legal team to negotiate, her terms, but she's not in the minutia of it. But she feels like she did not get what she felt like she deserved. And she felt like because Dr. G was coming on board, that there could be some concessions made for her, but there was no respect for her. And she feels like things could have been better. Could someone have called her? I'm sure someone could have. Are they obligated to? Not really. Would it have been a good look to do so? Perhaps. Yeah, it would have been, I think. I think it would have been a good idea. A heads up, Um, Phaedra's comeback, all right? She never saw the doctor that Phaedra was dating, only the emoji that the rest of us saw, leading us to believe that it may not be true. Anyway, I'm kidding, joking, allegedly. I don't know. I have no idea. Phaedra, who she's dating, I'm sure she's a woman about the world. Meanwhile, Quad says that she met with Matthew Anderson, whomever that is, and had a conversation about Phaedra and possibly bringing her on. She thought it was a great idea, and he said, let's work on this. And she was asked to participate in the process of Phaedra coming on board, and she did film a casting meeting about her and Phaedra's relationship. So this goes into why she mentioned Phaedra and how Phaedra got on this show, because she had done some of that work in advance to help get her there. My question was that before? This must have been before you got your contract, okay? Because you might have should have been thinking about you, okay, first. All right, are you solidified and coming back first? Then worry about the next girl, okay? Because I'm sure Phaedra ain't cheap, so the budget getting smaller and smaller, okay? She was devastated that Phaedra did not come to her defense at all. And she also says that, Dr. Heavenly had talked about there being some cut scenes, and she says she was not about to fight Toya. No one even got out of their seats, but there were words spoken passionately. So this is where we get some extra tea. She says that at the thing, apparently Toya made some accusations against Dr. Alicia's husband and his practices. This happened allegedly during the resurrection service repast, I think. And then later on, she had a conversation via phone with Phaedra about how Phaedra was concerned that was a bunch of ninja-ish, okay? Use your context clues. That basically she didn't want to be involved in. And if this was going to be how things were going, because it was accusations coming up, she was like, she could just do one-offs on some of these Ultimate Girls Trip shows, and that be it, and not participate in this low vibrational play energy. So Quad said she told her, well, this, we don't really go there. Like, it's not that bad. This ain't Housewives. This is a totally different show or whatever. So apparently Phaedra also had that same conversation with maybe some of the other ladies, or at least Dr. Heavenly. Dr. Heavenly, this is allegedly, according to Quad alleges that she had a conversation with Dr. Heavenly. And Dr. Heavenly allegedly said that Phaedra's just afraid, okay? Because of when Toya started going off on Alicia and making those allegations, she felt like Phaedra got scared. Because, Phaedra don't want to talk nothing about, according to Dr. Heavenly, none of the things that happened on her with Housewives and Candy and anything else, okay? So I'm sure Dr. Heavenly might have been like, well, I can see why she might be afraid. You know what I'm saying? Because she might be afraid somebody gonna start, making allegations about her. So, in that case, at that point, Dr. Heavenly said, according to Quad, Dr. Heavenly said Phaedra was a liar. And Quad asked, well, is it because Phaedra didn't know her due date? Now, remember, that was a thing with Phaedra when she first came on the Housewives. But according to Quad, Dr. Heavenly said, no, because I read the book that Angela Stanton wrote. And at that point, that was the end of the conversation. So for those of you guys don't know, there is a woman named Angela Stanton who wrote a book that I don't know if the whole book was about Phaedra or exposing Phaedra, but I know that there was, I think, some exposing of Phaedra that I never read the book, to be very honest with you, but I know that it is out there. So you can read it for yourself. Anyway. So then apparently that conversation gets brought up at dinner with Dr. Heavenly talking about, you were saying all this stuff about Phaedra. Okay. But Quad is like, well, does Phaedra know what you said about her? Okay. Now, Quad also says that Phaedra, she never learned that Phaedra didn't want to travel with her. Phaedra told her allegedly that they were supposed to be flying together, but Phaedra alleged that she was running late because she was down to the Rite Aid. At one point, Quad brings up a producer asking her to come to Napa Valley. She knew it was for Toya. She recalls earlier seasons having a conversation with Toya about, what type of business Toya could start or something like that to, basically maximize her time on the show and develop some other ventures, as anyone should, right? So she was happy to go to Napa to support Toya, even though they weren't in the best of place. She said she didn't mind getting to know Sweet Tea, but she feels like Dr. G will create a wedge between them. Even though she says that Sweet Tea has said some things about her that she will address at the reunion. So that right there, I was like, aha. So we know that Quad will be at the reunion. So that is some interesting tea as well. I would have assumed as much, but I did wonder about it last week. And I was like, I wonder if that means that she will be at the reunion or not, because to a certain degree, I could understand if she just sort of considered herself done with the show. But is she? Because we know she's going to come back, and now we know she's at the reunion. So what does that mean for next season? Interesting question. I'm still trying to figure out what they're going to do for the rest of the season. But we did, and I'm sure that was very, very smart for them to put that mid-season teaser at the end of the episode, because this was the episode where Quad got the dismissal from the group to thank you for your services from Dr. Simone, aka Shawnee O'Neal. All right. She wanted her voice to be heard at the dinner, but she says that they, continued to shut her down as if everyone was in on what was about to happen except her. It did feel like everybody in that room knew what was about to happen, and they were really just determined that, yeah, okay, this is your sob story, but yeah, we still gonna and I felt like they kind of realized after dinner, like, oh, I don't think she really got the point. The girl, just asked her to go home, and Simone was like, all right, I'll do it. That's what it felt like. And then, he asked her how did she feel when she was asked to go home, and obviously it cut off there, and we will have to wait and see, what happens on the next episode. Honestly, like, this was a very good compliment to the episode. Hearing her perspective right after the episode was much needed to fill in the blanks of things that I felt like the audience was seeing but maybe didn't understand. I don't know whether you like Quad or not when you're watching this review, but I definitely don't think that anybody can deny that this was riveting television. But it does harken back to the original question that I asked. Is this the beginning of a new Married to Medicine wherein the ladies can at will just determine that you're not moving how we like, so you got to go. Or were we already there with Mariah? Or did Mariah create her own circumstances? I don't know. All I do know is that Quad and Mariah are both great television. And wouldn't it be amazing to have them both back? Just a thought. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below.